We will hear from Scott Drew momentarily, Baylor men's basketball coach, number 1 ranked team in the country. Duke, number 2. Purdue is 3. Gonzaga, UCLA at 4 and 5. Baylor has Oklahoma tomorrow. James Akinjo named Big 12 men's basketball player of the week, 21.5 points, 6 assists, 2.5 steals in a couple of wins. KU is 6, Iowa State's 11. And they legitimized themselves. Now, they got to continue to do it with that battering ram of a schedule like everybody does in the conference. Houston, despite the injuries, is 12. Texas, 14. And then also Texas Tech in at 25.
And, when you think about it, if you're a Baylor fan, I don't know how you could possibly be against the transfer portal. Because in football and basketball, you have benefited greatly from the transfer portal. James Akinjo, for one. You look at Davion Mitchell and go down the list of guys on last year's basketball team and then even this year's team who have been impactful. You look at this Sugar Bowl team, and they're not in this game without Siaki Ika. They're not in this game without Jacob Gall coming in from Buffalo. They're not in this game without Grant Miller coming over from Vanderbilt. I mean, the offensive line was retooled in large part by the hiring of Eric Mateos and Jeff Grimes, but it was also bringing in Miller and Gall to help shore things up, and it was also helped on the defensive line, a big question mark coming into the season. I remember looking at the roster with Grayson, and we're like Braden Utley and Garmin Randolph, and even though Randolph ended up as a linebacker, but, looking at him, we're like, man, they're going to have to, I don't know, like on paper, and then here comes Apu, and it's like that was a total game changer, and then everybody else got better as well, and they did a really good job of coaching them up, but Baylor in men's basketball and football in particular, they have greatly benefited cherry-picking certain players in the transfer portal.
Apu allowed everybody else on the defensive line to play where they're supposed to play and not have to okay, well, you're the best option we have here, even though you'd be better here. And Apu can play where Apu can play. I mean, like that's where he can.
I did the first-round draft pick probably in a couple years.
And remember now, when that news first came out, there were like, okay, why is he leaving? And there was a little bit of maybe thoughts about his motor. And even earlier in the year, he wasn't in the great. I'll take that damn motor to run anything I have, by the way.
There was one game this year where I thought he was kind of out of his depths, and it was very early on, and I was like, man, he's got to get his head on straight. It took him watching the film of that game, apparently, because from
the tip pass against Iowa State, to me, was the match that struck his whatever. Remember that?
Yeah.
Picked it off. He didn't, but somebody picked it off, and it just seemed like from that point on. And it was also about the time he started to get more snaps. And, man, was he was just hard to move, and he was so disruptive. He became – I think early on we saw him – taking up tacklers or blockers, then he started becoming disruptive as well.
Yeah, I mean, they did not give up much against the run all year, and he was a big part of that. And he wasn't just a traffic cone placed in the middle. I mean, he was a disruptive guy, and, yeah, he ate up blockers and took on two and three guys more often than not, and then everybody else around him got better as well, and he got better as the season went along, and I'm really looking forward to the next time we talk to Dave Aranda. I got a lot of questions that I want to ask, but one in particular is about the development and growth of Apu, because we know it was almost like a pet project in a way.
Yeah,
that was a personal relationship that had already been built, and you ask, like, why did he leave LSU? Well, if you'd fast forward a few months, very easy to see why he would leave, given the coaching change that would occur shortly thereafter, and just the way their roster looks right now with the number of transfers and all that. So, I think, he had a tweet that he put out, and I saw where Apu put out, he's back home finally with family. Probably been a while since he's been back home, but he had put out a tweet that said, starting to think that I'm right where I need to be, and I got a lot of feedback, and I thought that was cool to see because, he could have gone to BYU or could have stayed at LSU or could have gone really anywhere, quite frankly. But he chose Baylor, and it seems like it's been a good fit, and you can't really argue with the results this year. I mean, he comes in, Big 12 champion, Sugar Bowl champion, and he keeps playing the way he's playing. He's going to be a big-time NFL draft pick sooner rather than later as well. So he was a massive get out of the transfer portal, and they are not in that game or any of these games. They're not winning 12 without Apu Ika or any of the other transfers they brought in.
Yeah, and, of course, the 9, I think officially the 9 sacks, the disruptive defense, the interceptions, and much more. And speaking of disruptive defense and speaking of making plays, it's top-ranked, unbeaten, defending national champion Baylor, and head coach Scott Drew joins us live today on Sikkim 365 Radio. So I know you love defense. What about Baylor's defense in football, Coach?
Man, I tell you what, we were excited. The only bad news is our flight got delayed, so we couldn't see the whole game. We were able to see about half of it, though, and everyone was really excited. And you did a great job in New Orleans getting that done for us. So well done, Smokey.
Well, we had a lot to do with it, believe me. Scott, what is defense? Is it mental? Is it physical? Is it a commitment? How do you describe playing defense?
Well, first of all, you have to have players that are athletic enough to stay in front, do their jobs, and execute. Second of all, they have to have the mental prep and desire to learn and to execute. And then third, you have to have a scheme that actually can work. So you put all that together, and Baylor football and basketball have been pretty successful.
Scott, is that the first time in a while you guys have had a flight delay and had to wait out, a nor'easter or whatever you were in?
Yeah. We got delayed in Oregon as well. So maybe when you get a road win and it's a delay, I can tell you after a road win, you can put up with a lot, though. So if that's what it takes to keep getting road wins, flight delays, we will do that.
Scott, the way you were able to handle that day and on the road, and it just seemed like no matter what's thrown at you, you always have a response. Your team just figures it out. And you've said this before, that it's what's been brought down over the last few years, the culture and the leadership or whatever else. But you have a mixture of a lot of young players and also, again, incoming players. How did they learn that so quickly?
Well, I think first our staff deserves a lot of credit for identifying guys that would fit in and buy into the culture. And then the players deserve a lot of credit. You look at Kendall and Jeremy, Dale and James, those are the new guys playing, and the fact that they've listened to the upperclassmen, listened to the coaches, and then obviously they're very talented players as well, but the fact that they've picked up things, wanted to buy in, you can call them 5-star guys, 0-star egos, and that's why they've been so successful. So and it's also caring about winning and knowing their roles, and so often coaches struggle to play newer players because they don't know their roles or they don't fit in. And we're really blessed to have guys that do, and thus we've gotten out to the start that we have.
Scott, you get used to playing people and styles, and now with transfer portal and coaching changes, Oklahoma looks a lot different than they did last year. Yohan Cougar is retired, and Porter Moser is there, and of course they've got some different players. What's the biggest change that you've seen from OU this season as they started out great, 11-2?
Well, I think they've added some new players like Iowa State did, and I think analytically, defensively, they were a lot better last year than they had been, and this year it seems like they've even taken another step forward defensively. So you at one point, I know 7 of the top 25 defenses in the country. Ken Palm Analytics were in the Big 12, and OU I think right now is at 31. But so defensively they're really good. Porter's always done a great job in making things really difficult on the defensive end. But at the same time, last year they had a lot of guys who could score, and this year same thing. They're top 5 in effective field goal percentage in the country. They shoot a real high percentage. So we got to do a good job disrupting that, contesting as much as possible, and then players are going to make plays, make shots. You just want to make it as difficult as possible on them. And in the Big 12, it's so important to protect the home court. And I was talking the other day with the Jeff Goodman podcast, and he was like, this year it seems like there's more parity than last year. And I said, I think really what it is you're back to having fans. And when you have fans, it's so hard to win on the road because fans give you so much energy. They impact the game. They impact the officiating, no matter what anyone says. So, it's important to have a packed crowd, a hostile crowd, and a crowd that helps your home team.
Scott, a lot of times when people bring up the transfer portal, they kind of focus on the negative aspects of it. But I was just saying, Baylor basketball and Baylor football benefited greatly. And certainly one of those benefits lately has been James Akinjo coming over, named the Big 12 Player of the Week today after what he was able to do the past couple of games. What has it been like, having James on the roster, just seeing his development, working alongside him, and seeing him getting the honor this week?
Well, it's a great team award, and as you know, when the team wins, people get honors, and hopefully we have a lot more throughout the year. team keeps doing well. And James is somebody that has been at two good programs and learned a lot. But he came in to here, and instead of just being satisfied with what he does and how he does it, he's been open to learning and improving and fitting in with our culture. And that's a tribute to the upperclassmen and everybody on the team and himself. So with that, it's allowed us to have somebody that's been 3 years in the conference, Power 5 conference battles, and he brings that experience, that toughness, that grind to him. He's extremely hard worker, and he's been a delight to have.
Scott, do you feel like that perhaps he could even have conversations with Matthew Meyer, because Matthew was kind of like that young colt that had to be kind of, in a way, methodically understand the system? Would that be a good conversation with him because of what it has made Matthew now?
Well, I think Matt, Adam, Flo, all our guys that John that have been here several years now, Jordan, I think they all do a great job in passing on their wisdom and knowledge. And I think Matt last year, rooming with Jared Butler and Mark Patterson, those guys, Jackson Moffitt, they spiritually really poured into him, socially, basketball-wise. And Matt's done a great job this year in maturing his game, being able to defensively, offensively, and his facilitating part of things. He's always been someone who could score, but his all-around game is improving. He's playing a lot harder. So again, I think everybody, iron sharpens iron, and each day in practice, the wings going against each other with Kendall and Jeremy and Matt and Jordan, those guys battling, it makes them better, and that's something that helps everybody.
Matthew, I know he's talked to us about, sometimes being kind of youthful and stubborn at times in his development and growth, but he does seem to be someone who, when you put him in a situation, he does like to absorb information in spite of maybe being a little bit stubborn. That's kind of unique to have both those sides to your personality, isn't it?
Well, Matt's somebody that has really also embraced the NIL part of things and helping out with the players and understanding. He loves business, loves the stock market. He'd talk all day long to you with that stuff. So he's somebody that has a lot of wisdom in the business side of things, and learns a lot of that from his dad, and somebody that, again, we've seen mature each and every year that he's been here, and he gets better and better on and off the court with that.
Scott, you do always learn something, even if you blow somebody out or you win a game, and there's some things that happen that crop up in a game. I know taking care of the ball's always got to be one that you take care of, but there were a couple of things. What do you think the players learn about getting the ball in bounds and some of the pressure? And you have some new type of mixtures there at your guard position.
Yeah. Well, I think you look at it, and I know I've seen some tweets where we're the first team since like UNLV to win a championship, and the next year start out not have any game closer than 8 points or whatnot. So the game-ending part of things, that was great for us to have an opportunity to be in that situation, learn from it, and from a coaching standpoint, we've learned things, and from that, we've been able to work on some things since then, and hopefully put our guys in better positions, and most of all, just get experience. Kind of like the first time you go to the free throw line. No matter how much you prep it and go over things in practice, it's a little different on the road in front of a packed house, 14,000 or whatever, and you got to execute, and then you got to deal with all of that. So I think each game in the Big 12, you get more and more used to 1-2 possession games, because you have a lot of those in the Big 12, and then also hostile environments, and hopefully home games, we provide that hostile environment for the teams that come in.
You mentioned the leads that you guys have, 8 to 10 points. It seems to me most times when you guys get to 8 to 10 points, especially 10, when you hit double digits, there's a lot of times where some guys will let off the reins because it's 4 or 5 possessions to swap the lead. But that's really when you guys, smell the blood in the water. What's the key to that mentality of double digits? Now it's really time, to put the hammer down.
Well, I think that's our the last couple of years. Big strength has been our bench, and we call it a starting rotation. I mean, the 8-9 guys that we play, most teams go to the bench and there's a drop off. We go to the bench and get stronger. So, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of teams, when you get an 8-10 point lead, it's the same guys on the court, and they're not winded and gassed, and that's when they make some mistakes, because fatigue makes cowards of us all. But the great thing with us is we're able to keep the pedal to the metal, keep providing the toughness on both ends of the court, and hopefully the execution on both ends of the court, and that allows you to stretch leads. So that's a tremendous blessing to have, and especially during COVID. As you know, you have injuries in the Big 12, and you got to have that depth to be able to withstand some of that and still be able to execute and play at a high level and put guys on the court that can stretch leads.
Scott, one more thing, if you don't mind. Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball, number 1 in the country, Oklahoma tomorrow night. You've started this sledgehammer, is what I call it, of the Big 12. I mean, there's no break. Mm-hmm. Nothing is easy. Can you kind of explain the mental part of this, of knowing that every single time you play, that it's not easy, and there are no gimmies in the Big 12?
Well, I think the best thing is you can just go to the numbers, and we've been the best league in the country, RPI-wise, net ranking-wise, the last 7 or 8 years, and it's not even close. I mean, and it's not because of 1, 2, or 3 teams. It's because 1 to 10, there's no bottom feeders. There are no easy games. There's no a game where you can rest guys. I mean, each and every night you're dealing with talented teams and players, great coaches, great atmospheres, and hence that's why you get 7 or 8 teams out of 10. I know the last projection was 8 out of 10 teams to the NCAA tournament, and we've been by far and away the most with 68% making it to the NCAA tournament in that time period. And the next highest league's at 50%. So again, that's because top to bottom, there are no. I mean, you can say someone's in 10th place, but there's not a big drop off or dip, and you get a lot of that in professional sports. When teams aren't tanking for draft picks.
Hey, thank you for your time, man. I got that as well. Yep, got that as well. Thanks for your time. Congratulations. Did you get in the snow fight, by the way? Did you get in the snow fight?
I got the question before you got the question. All right. So, what was your best meal? And then, how much money were you up? Because I know they said you were doing real well at Harris.
Craig and I did go there on New Year's Eve. Craig, you did okay, right?
I left positive, not rich, but positive.
I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I know that text I get, that text alert anytime I take money out of the ATM or something is charged to my debit card was going on a lot, though. I don't know if that means.
Scott, I went in the middle of the day, and there were just so many old people there. I thought I can't get here. I don't want somebody to take a picture and be like, he's just given up.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it. But I'll tell you, the best meal for me always is charbroiled oysters at Drago's. Best morsel of food in America.
Oh, that's the best.
Wow. Yeah, that's outstanding right there. What about you, Smoak?
Well, we went to a place I thought was called, what was it, the place we went to for seafood? Boutique or something like that? It actually was pretty good.
Yeah. I can't remember the name, but I'd say the hotel.
There's not a lot of bad ones, are there?
Well,
no, there's not.
Here's another thing, is the hospitality. We were right outside the media hospitality suite where we set up the show, where the media hotel was. And the food that they served us after the game Saturday night, we didn't have time to eat much of it because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, but it was unbelievable.
Yeah, barbecue shrimp was out of this world.
They had shrimp and grits. They had the prime rib cutting right there. But that might have been, I just didn't have a chance to do much with it. That might have been the best one. It was right there in the hotel. I know that's not what you were looking for, but the one where Paul's mentioned, Dragos, that's about as good as it gets if you have time to get over there and you can get a table.
Scott, if you get us back there, I can give you a tour.
Well, it's good to have you guys back. As far as the snow fight, I don't participate in snowball fights when the wind chill's below negative, whatever it is, and it was like negative 20. So I was on the bus. I think Jeremy got in a good shot on somebody though. So
LJ, I asked LJ Cryer. He was in with us on the post game after you had won, and I asked him. I said, "Did you have your heavy coat?" He goes, "No, I left mine in Houston." LJ, you got to go get that. You got to go get that.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I know. You could definitely tell we're from Texas when a couple guys walked in with sweatshirts. So. Hey, you guys take care. Thank you. Too.
Scott Drew in Oklahoma tomorrow night at the Farrell Center. Then on the way to TCU Saturday, then back home against Texas Tech early next week. Scott Drew, number 1 ranked Baylor. And then that leads to a little bit later on, we'll bring up the women's basketball team. They were beaten at Kansas State. They've lost 3 times, and it's a little bit dicey for them with their lack of depth and who the schedule has. They have Texas this weekend. They have Oklahoma before that. This could be one, and I know that there's some people that are a little bit concerned about it, including the head coach and Nikki Collins, and we'll discuss that at some point as well. This, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.